Hello and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I'm Or Zabludowski, CEO of Flexor, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Shanna Anderson, Senior Director of Customer Data and Insights at Fifth Third Bank. AI is becoming embedded in so many business workflows, and we see huge opportunities in where AI learns to understand parts of the business that were previously untapped, such as documents and conversations and all these kinds of untapped, unstructured pieces of information, but also the wider context of broader data sets that are many scattered pieces of information that people use to integrate in their heads. How do you see these kinds of new experiences being embedded into your backend, into your back office processes, optimizing the work of your internal teams?
And I think if you think about banking just in general, especially for any bank that's been around for some time, it's very much a paper business in some aspects still. There's a lot that's been digitized, but still it's a matter of fact today that customers still write checks to pay certain things. There's still, pieces of paper that come in terms of documentation for, different types of, whether it's a loan or for, a different type of like customer, product or need that they're working on. And so that's really, caused us to look at, all of those different use cases that are still paper heavy or very unstructured data heavy and figure out, hey, where do we have opportunities to deploy AI? And those are definitely things that come up on a daily basis with our business leaders and with our technology teams as we, have focused, organizations that are looking specifically at how can we take AI and generative AI tools and attach that to some of those work processes that are happening today that are fairly manual or very paper heavy. That's something that we actively have teams deployed against of, some different use cases that are being worked on. But it's something that we see as like there's an endless amount of things that can be done there. And I think that's the same across a lot of businesses today. They're looking at, anything that requires paper still or where they have unstructured data. How can we leverage the tools that are now available or becoming available so that we can make those processes better by using generative AI? There's a lot of things also from a customer standpoint, where they get paper, from the bank and it might be in digital form, but, how can we continue to look at ways that AI can play a role in that? I think that there's, a lot to still be done there. We're pacing ourselves in terms of like how we prioritize each of those use cases and making sure that, the governance and the compliance piece stays front of mind as we explore each of them, because we want to make sure that anything that we're, going against has the right outcomes attached to it and it's going to make a process better and that we're watching in terms of like what the, outcomes are around that or what types of decisions are made regarding it. But each of our business leaders are highly focused on, where can this play a role in helping either their employees, gain productivity or also better customer experience outcomes.
And
kind of generic, but, like you can't give all the secret sauce away of like where, maybe the focus areas are at too.
Clearly. I have the privilege of not giving away secret sauce of any specific company, but giving the broader perspective of what we see in different banking, financial services businesses in this area, and that resonates really well with what you're talking about. So it all starts with, can we automate processes? Can we enhance processes? Imagine digesting like 100-page policy document to make a decision. This is a hard thing. And when policies change frequently with new regulations, this need to catch up. Ways to automate that are clearly valuable. However, there's a new opportunity. The fact that machines can now turn this unstructured data into assets, because it's no longer text, it can be transformed into tabular structured data. That means that machines and humans are now able to leverage insights out of these huge amounts of text. So if you are in the insurance space and you had hundreds or thousands of claims documents that you use to process one by one, you can now ingest all of them, query them, and reach insights and learn new things about the history of your business and maybe even start predicting future behavior. And that wasn't possible because nobody was technically able to extract all this information. So it starts with automating, extracting, and then slowly moving just up the curve. It's all the way to prescriptive analytics based on unstructured data. But you need historical data.
There's so much opportunity there. And so, I mean, you're exactly right. Or like, that's where there's a lot of opportunity where something has been very, I'll call it either paper heavy or word heavy, in those types of documents of, so much can be unlocked from that as well as shortening the time of even from employees working within a company of what they can, be able to glean from insights or be able to understand, different things that, might be in large document form today and how they can use that going forward.
Yes. And it gets even more interesting when you go to corporate banking, when you go to insurance, commercial insurance. The amount of information collected about an individual company is huge, and it wasn't leveraged in the past. It was all in the head of the underwriters. And now there's a new opportunity in the markets. And I think that we're almost at time. So I have one final question for you, which is the tips and tricks or the playbooks. If you had to write a short playbook for financial services data leaders today, with all it means for data and AI, what would be 2 or 3 practices that you'd emphasize, or maybe anti-patterns that you'd be allowing people not to go with or avoid?
So I'd probably point to a couple things. And coming out of the business and working in our technology teams and data teams, it definitely makes it where I think a lot about our business partners and our business executives and the outcomes that they're trying to go after. And so I definitely have more of a business slant around this, but I also would, say that that's a little bit of what my secret sauce is of what I can bring to the table for our data and technology teams is being able to understand, like, when you bring those things together, from business being focused on their outcomes and technology also focused on helping them meet their outcomes, it's really a great partnership. And so there's a couple of things I would point to in terms of a playbook, especially I hear it all the time when I go to conferences around how do I make sure like I'm partnering better with my business teams, or how do I make sure that I'm helping my company, hit their business outcomes, and it doesn't feel like it's, us versus them. And that's such an important piece to really think about the partnership piece and think about, hey, where are the pain points that my business teams feel in processes or in technology and applications, and how can I make that better, or how can my teams make that better? And so some of the things that I would say are really important that I've looked at from that playbook is we have a modern data strategy that is fantastic, and it's meant to make it where our enterprise data office is not a bottleneck to anyone who wants to deliver outcomes, and having a marketplace that we've built internally for data products that is trusted and has source data and teams are able to use for, projects that they may be working on or outcomes that are important. What's really important, though, even with that, is you have to also meet the business where they are and where their skill set is at. And so you have to look at how can I enable or automate things as much as possible so they're not pain points, or I don't make my business partners or my other technology teams feel like they have to have a data engineering background or a data engineering skill set to be able to work with data. And that's something we've done a lot around of how do you automate things when you set up a data product that makes it where access is automated for the teams that need to use it and have the right, business cases to access that data. They have lineage that is, showing where that data came from, so you understand the source, so it can be trusted data. It has information around who owns that data product from a business standpoint as well as a technology standpoint. So you have, things where it's documented on what that business or what that data is used for. And all of that makes it where it's easier for whether it's a technology team using that or a business team using a data product. It's not hard, and they don't have to feel like they have to understand ETLs to transform their data, or they need to understand SQL to be able to, work with data. It's all about automating those things where before would have required a higher skill set. And that makes it easier for the business when you start talking about, hey, we're going to federate out, data products, or we're going to federate out owning data. When people first hear that, that can be a little alarming, especially to a business, partner, that maybe they go, man, I'm really good at analysis. I'm really good at Excel. I'm really good at, these things, but I don't know how to work with data that way. And so when it's automated and they're able to get to it without having to do the lift, that's a big win between the teams. The other thing that I would point to from a playbook standpoint is making sure that you build a strong foundation for any type of modeling or for AI. And that really leads to, trust in the data. Also, it sets the standard of what you need going forward. If you think about instituting more Gen AI projects across the business, and as we enable those, if we don't have the right data foundation set up for that, then it's ultimately either going to be not trusted or it's going to fail. And that's a lot of, where we spend some time of how do we look at old processes that maybe are not documented and are not understood, and how do we rebuild those in a modern way so that they're highly consumable either by a model or for the business. And that makes it where, teams feel like they're safer using that data. They're safer in understanding its resiliency and also the outcomes that they're going to get from it in terms of like analytical decisions that they could make from that, or even from performance data that we might share with either, earnings releases, or it could also be internally too for strategic decisions. So I point to those as like the ones where I'd say are like really important from a playbook of what I consider the things that we should definitely focus on, or any leader that's working in the space, from a data standpoint. Things I would say I avoid where anti-patterns is watch the tech for tech, and really making sure that anything that you're working on, of course, there's going to be things that you have to work on from vulnerabilities, or, making sure you do, things that are about keeping your tech sound or your platforms in good shape. But everything else, really be thinking about what are the outcomes that we can deliver that are really going to advance the bank and move the bank forward in terms of its strategic decisions, and what is the value attached to the development work that we're doing, so your teams can be able to understand the work that they're doing and why it makes an impact, and then being able to share that back with your business leaders so that they understand what you're delivering as well. I think that goes a long way with teams and partnerships of making sure that we're delivering what value is expected, but also that it is a partnership and not where you're working potentially against each other from a technology standpoint and business outcomes.
This is so important, not only to deliver, but also to harness the motivation of the builders and of the business stakeholders for all these kind of back office tasks that sometimes you have to do, and make sure that you don't do the ones that you don't need to do. And yep. What you said just reminded me of a term which is not just going to getting to production, but also staying in production. Because the more variables you have changing, the harder it is to stay in production and keep producing valuable resources. So data is always changing, right? The market is changing, so our customer behavior is changing and data is changing. But in the world of AI, also models are changing under the hood. OpenAI may just upgrade a version. All of a sudden, model behavior changes, results change. Can we keep track, and can we make sure that we have the right foundations so we are keeping the trends of quality, reliability going up consistently? And I think that this concept of building the foundations to stay in production is a really important one in the era of AI.
I agree.
Thank you, Shanna, for the super insightful conversation. We covered so much ground here, so thank you so much for joining me today. And I'd like to thank CDO Magazine for hosting us here. And for more interviews and insights, please visit cdomagazine.tech, where they have all the best materials and the recording of this video too. Thank you.
Glad I could join. Thank you.